right, so you've been digging into this whole idea of revision.
Yeah.
And it seems like you're looking to go a little deeper, right? Beyond just like, fixing typos and tweaking sentences.
Right.
You want to understand how revision can really like fundamentally reshape a piece of writing.
Absolutely.
And the excerpt you shared from revision with that character, what was his name? Dr. Bobby.
Dr. Bobby, yeah.
He offers a really interesting perspective.
He does.
So basically, Dr. Bobby is saying that revision isn't just about polishing, it's about like incorporating new information, maybe even restructuring your whole argument.
Exactly. And he uses this really fascinating analogy to make his point. The movie Clue.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you remember how Clue has multiple endings, right?
Oh, yeah.
Each one reveals a different killer.
Right. So the whodunit changes, but there's still that core set of facts that stays the same.
That's the key.
Okay, so how does that work?
Well, for example, in all the endings, the victims are the same. The cook, Yvette, and the singing telegram girl.
Right.
The power outage is a constant, and the gun, it always goes missing.
Okay, so it's like those individual facts are still there, but the way we interpret them, and ultimately the conclusion we reach, changes drastically, depending on the new information that comes out in each ending.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where it gets really interesting. In ending 2, there's this detail that kind of like reframes everything we thought we knew about Mrs. Peacock.
Oh.
She disappears during all the chaos, but guess what? She ends up being the one with the revolver.
Whoa. So it's like that one little piece of information, her going missing, and then suddenly she's got the gun.
Yeah.
It makes us reevaluate everything about her, right?
Absolutely. And that's exactly how it works with revision in writing. As you do your research, you might discover something new.
Right.
And that new information can totally shift your understanding, leading you to reinterpret all the evidence you already have and maybe even arrive at a completely different conclusion.
So it's like being a detective, constantly looking for those missing pieces, those aha moments that change the whole case. I like that.
Think about it this way.
Yeah.
Let's say you're writing a paper and you're arguing that a certain historical event had one clear-cut cause, right? But then, through your research, you discover new evidence.
Right.
This evidence suggests there were actually multiple contributing factors.
Okay.
Now, you don't just throw out all your research, you re-examine it in light of this new information. Maybe you shift your focus a bit, or even revise your whole thesis statement.
Okay.
The facts themselves don't change, but the way we connect them and the conclusions we draw can evolve dramatically.
It's like, it's not about being right or wrong. It's more about embracing the process of discovery and allowing our understanding to kind of like grow and deepen as we learn more.
That's a great way to put it.
And that's where revision comes in.
Exactly.
It's not just about fixing errors. It's about like digging deeper, questioning our assumptions, and ultimately refining our understanding of the topic.
And that brings us back to Clue.
Okay.
In one of the endings, there's this seemingly insignificant detail. Mrs. Peacock knows about a specific dinner entree that's unusual in Washington, D.C.
Okay. And that seemingly unimportant detail suddenly becomes a crucial piece of evidence.
Exactly.
Wow. So it's like even those tiny little details can have a huge impact on our understanding.
They can.
Makes you realize that revision isn't just about big sweeping changes. It's also about those subtle nuances that might shift our perspective.
Absolutely.
I'm starting to see revision in a whole new light now. It's not about being right or wrong. It's more about embracing the process of discovery, like you said, and allowing our understanding to evolve as we learn more.
And that's what makes revision such a powerful tool.
Yeah.
It allows us to deepen our understanding and refine our arguments as we learn more. It's not about starting from scratch, but about building upon what we already know and incorporating new insights to create something more nuanced and insightful.
So instead of seeing revision as just fixing errors, we should approach it as an opportunity to dig deeper, question our assumptions, and ultimately refine our understanding of the topic.
Right.
Kind of like a detective re-examining the evidence with fresh eyes, like we were talking about.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about how revision is like solving a mystery, constantly seeking new clues and reinterpreting the evidence.
Right.
But how can we actually apply this detective mindset to our own writing?
Yeah, that's a great question.
What are some specific strategies we can use to interrogate our sources and uncover those hidden connections that can lead to a truly insightful revision?
That's a great question, and it's something we'll explore further in our deep dive.
Okay.
But before we do that, let's take a closer look at one specific scene from Clue
All right.
and see how it can give us some practical insights into the art of revision.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so you mentioned a specific scene from Clue
Yeah.
that can offer some insights into revision.
Right.
Which scene are we talking about?
Well, remember the one where all the guests are gathered in the lounge
Oh,
and they're trying to figure out who the killer is?
yeah.
Professor Plum, he's the one who suggests they retrace everyone's steps,
Right.
hoping to uncover like a discrepancy or something, right?
Yeah.
That might reveal the culprit.
Right. And then everyone starts chiming in with their alibis.
Exactly.
And it creates this like jumbled timeline of events.
That's exactly where the parallel to revision comes in.
Okay.
When we're revising our writing.
Yeah.
It's often helpful to do a similar kind of step retracing.
Okay, so like with our own arguments.
With our own arguments, yeah.
Okay.
We need to go back through our drafts and carefully examine each point we've made, each piece of evidence we've presented,
Yeah.
and see if there are any inconsistencies or gaps in our logic.
So it's like we're playing detective with our own writing.
Exactly.
Looking for those clues
Yes.
that might reveal a flaw in our argument.
Yeah.
Or point to a different way to interpret the evidence.
Precisely. And just like in that scene from Clue,
Right.
where all those conflicting accounts raise more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Sometimes when we retrace our steps in a draft, we uncover areas where our thinking needs to be clarified, or where our evidence might be weak or even contradictory.
So it's not just about looking for factual errors.
No.
It's about analyzing the structure of our argument, the flow of our ideas, making sure that everything connects logically and supports our main thesis.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So think of it like you're examining the blueprints of a building.
Okay.
You're not just looking for cracks in the walls, right?
Yeah.
You're checking the foundation, the load-bearing beams, the overall structural integrity.
So when we're revising, we need to make sure that our argument is built on a solid foundation of evidence and logical reasoning.
Precisely.
So retracing our steps is like a structural inspection for our writing,
Exactly.
making sure everything is sound and supporting our overall message.
And just like in that Clue scene where the characters' alibis start to unravel under scrutiny,
Right?
sometimes retracing our steps in a draft can lead to unexpected discoveries.
Like what?
We might realize that a seemingly minor point we made earlier actually contradicts a later point, or that a piece of evidence we thought was insignificant
Yeah.
actually holds the key to a more compelling argument.
So it's not just about confirming what we already know. It's about being open to new interpretations and letting those discoveries guide our revision process.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important aspect of revision, being willing to challenge our own assumptions.
Oh, yeah.
In Clue, each character is totally convinced of their own innocence,
Right.
even when the evidence points in a different direction.
Right. They're also focused on defending their own version of events.
Right.
That they miss those crucial clues that could lead them to the truth.
And that's something we need to be mindful of in our own writing.
Okay.
It's easy to get attached to our initial ideas and arguments.
Sure.
But revision requires us to step back and objectively assess whether those ideas are truly supported by the evidence.
So we need to be willing to play devil's advocate with ourselves, to question our own assumptions, and to be open to the possibility that we might need to significantly revise our thinking, even if it means challenging our own deeply held beliefs.
Exactly. And sometimes that willingness to challenge our assumptions, it can lead to the most profound and insightful revisions.
Okay.
It's about having the courage to admit that we might not have all the answers, and being open to the possibility that our initial understanding of a topic might be incomplete or even incorrect.
So revision is not just about refining our arguments. It's also about refining our thinking.
That's a great way to put it.
It's about embracing the process of intellectual growth and being open to changing our minds as we learn more.
Precisely. And just like in Clue, where the characters' assumptions about each other are constantly being challenged and overturned.
Right.
Revision requires us to be willing to question everything, to examine every angle, and to be open to the possibility that the truth might be more complex than we initially thought.
This is really making me think about how important it is to approach revision with a sense of humility.
Yeah.
And open-mindedness.
Absolutely.
It's not about clinging to our initial ideas. It's about being willing to let them go if the evidence suggests a different path.
And that brings us to another key strategy for effective revision: seeking feedback from others.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
In Clue, the characters are constantly bouncing ideas off each other, sharing their theories, and challenging each other's perspectives.
Right.
And while it's often chaotic and comedic, that process of dialogue and debate ultimately helps them get closer to the truth.
So it's like, even though they're all suspects, They also need each other to figure out what really happened.
Exactly. And in the same way, when we're revising our writing, it's invaluable to get feedback from others,
Okay.
whether it's from a professor, a classmate, a friend, or a writing tutor. Getting outside perspectives can help us see our work in a new light
Right.
and identify areas where our thinking might be unclear, incomplete, or biased.
So it's like having a fresh pair of eyes on our work.
Right.
Someone who can point out those blind spots that we might have missed
Yeah.
because we're so close to the material.
Precisely, and just like in Clue, where the characters' different personalities and perspectives clash and collide,
Right.
getting feedback from a variety of sources
Yeah.
can provide us with a range of insights that we might not have considered on our own.
So it's not just about getting someone to proofread for grammar and spelling.
No. Yeah.
It's about getting feedback on the substance of our argument,
Yes.
the clarity of our ideas, and the overall effectiveness of our communication.
Exactly. And sometimes that feedback can be challenging to hear,
Sure.
especially if it calls into question some of our core assumptions
Right.
or suggests that we need to make major revisions.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that feedback is a gift, an opportunity to improve our work and deepen our understanding.
This is making me realize that revision isn't a solitary activity.
No, it's not.
It's a collaborative process.
It is.
It's about being open to the insights and perspectives of others and using that feedback to refine our thinking and create something truly exceptional.
Exactly. And just like in Clue,
Okay.
where the characters ultimately solve the mystery by working together and pooling their knowledge,
Yeah.
revision is often most successful when we approach it as a collaborative endeavor,
Okay.
seeking out feedback from others and being open to incorporating their insights into our own thinking.
So we've talked about retracing our steps, challenging our assumptions, and seeking feedback from others.
Right?
Are there any other key strategies we can borrow from Clue to enhance our revision process?
Absolutely. One final takeaway from Clue
Okay.
is the importance of paying attention to detail.
Oh.
Remember how seemingly insignificant details like the type of wrench used or the color of a dress
Yeah.
end up playing crucial roles in solving the mystery?
Right. It's like those little details that you might not even notice at first glance can actually hold the key to cracking the case.
Exactly. And in the same way, when we're revising our writing,
Yeah.
it's important to pay close attention to detail.
Okay.
This means carefully scrutinizing our word choices,
Right.
our sentence structure, our transitions, and all those other elements that contribute to the overall clarity and effectiveness of our communication.
So it's not just about getting the big picture right.
No.
It's about making sure that every sentence, every paragraph, every footnote is working towards the same goal
Yeah.
and contributing to the overall coherence and persuasiveness of our argument.
Precisely. And just like in Clue, where a misplaced candlestick or a missing button can change the entire course of the investigation.
Oh, wow.
In revision,
Yeah.
even seemingly small details can have a significant impact on the clarity and persuasiveness of our writing.
This is making me realize that revision isn't just about fixing errors.
Right.
It's about refining our craft, honing our skills as writers, and paying attention to all those elements that contribute to a truly polished and effective piece of writing.
Exactly. And just like in Clue,
Okay.
where the character's attention to detail ultimately leads them to the truth.
Yeah.
In revision, our attention to detail can help us craft arguments that are not only logically sound, but also stylistically compelling and engaging for our readers.
So we've learned a lot from Clue about the art of revision.
We have.
We've seen how retracing our steps, challenging our assumptions, seeking feedback from others,
Yeah.
and paying attention to detail can all contribute to a more effective and insightful revision process.
They all can.
But what does this all mean for us as writers?
That's a great question.
How can we take these lessons from Clue and apply them to our own work?
That's a great question, and it's one that we'll explore in more depth in the final part of our deep dive.
Sure.
We'll discuss some specific strategies for incorporating these Clue-inspired revision techniques into your own writing process, so you can approach revision with confidence and create work that is both intellectually rigorous and stylistically compelling.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so we've talked about revising the structure, making sure our arguments are well organized.
Right.
But what about the actual words themselves?
Oh, yeah, that's crucial.
How do we make sure our writing is clear, engaging, and really brings our ideas to life?
Well, think about the dialogue in Clue.
Okay.
It's sharp, it's witty, it keeps us on the edge of our seats.
Right.
Our writing should aim for that same kind of energy.
Okay, so how do we do that? How
Yeah.
do we give our writing that cinematic quality?
One way is to focus on the rhythm of our sentences.
Okay, rhythm, like music.
Exactly. Just like a good song has a beat that keeps you moving, our sentences should have a flow that pulls the reader along.
Okay, so how do we make sure our sentences have that flow?
Well, a simple but powerful trick is to read your work out loud.
Oh, interesting.
When you hear your sentences spoken, you can catch those awkward phrases, those unnecessary words that trip up the reader.
Makes sense. Kind of like if you're listening to a song and there's a note that's off key.
Exactly. You can feel it right away.
Right, right. So by reading aloud, we can smooth out those rough edges and create a more engaging rhythm.
Precisely.
Okay, so we're paying attention to the rhythm, the flow of our sentences.
Right.
What else can we do to bring our writing to life?
Another key is to use vivid language and imagery.
Okay.
Think about how Clue uses visual details to set the scene, you know?
Yeah.
The dimly lit rooms, the flickering candles, the dramatic shadows.
Right. It creates that whole atmosphere.
Exactly. And our writing can do the same thing. We can use strong verbs, evocative adjectives, metaphors that spark the reader's imagination.
So instead of saying, like, the argument was weak, we might say something like, the argument collapsed like a house of cards.
Exactly. You're not just stating a fact, you're creating a picture in the reader's mind.
I like that. Yeah, it makes it more memorable.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're reading our work out loud, using vivid language, trying to make it as engaging as possible.
Right.
What else should we keep in mind during this final stage of revision?
Well, remember that revision isn't just about making our writing sound good, it's about making sure our arguments are sound too.
Right, right.
So as you're going through your work, ask yourself, is my main point clear? Have I backed up my claims with solid evidence? Does my conclusion really follow from what I've presented?
So it's like we're playing detective with our own ideas,
Yeah.
making sure all the pieces fit together and the mystery is actually solved.
Precisely. And just like in Clue,
Yeah.
where the characters have to constantly reevaluate their assumptions,
Right.
we need to be willing to do the same with our own arguments.
Yeah, makes sense.
Challenge our own thinking, re-examine our evidence, and make sure everything holds up under scrutiny.
This whole deep dive has been so insightful.
It's been fun.
I really feel like I have a whole new perspective on revision.
That's great to hear.
It's not just about fixing mistakes, it's about elevating our writing, making it the best it can be.
And remember, it's a process. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become in your ability to revise and refine your work.
So it's like any skill, the more you do it, the better you get.
Exactly. And the rewards are definitely worth it.
I agree. Well, this has been an awesome deep dive into the world of revision.
Thanks for having me.
And, who knew we could learn so much from a classic murder mystery like Clue?
You never know where inspiration will strike.
That's right. So to everyone listening, we hope you've enjoyed this exploration. And remember, next time you're facing a revision, channel your inner detective, embrace the process, and you might just uncover some brilliant insights along the way.